He was missing.
Well, apology. Stu is here somewhere. Right, really new one.
Stu knows. Right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Cromwell, Cromwell. To the Central Target District Council, being held in Alexandra.
Great start, boss. Great start.
Yeah,
I think that's 40.
absolutely. And can we start this morning's meeting with the karakia? Sarah, you're going to get it first, thank you.
Ngā mihi o te rā, ki te whānau e huhu nei, e tātaranga Mario, e whakatapua tātou, e ngā mea e whakapono ana tātou, omie, ui, kākia. Greetings of the day to the whānau gathered here. Let peace be with us and may we respect each other and what we believe.
Thank you. Okay, so apologies. We have apologies from Mia Tamer. And Tracy will be here shortly. And also, I think a couple of you are having to leave by certain times. So we'll record those apologies when you need to leave for your other commitments. Someone do need to move them, Wayne, or we just someone move them, please. Literally look at me, Ian, you in favour? It's carried, thank you. And now we'll go to public forum, and Lynn Stewart, I believe, is here to talk to the item coming up later on about the the open spaces and recreation strategy. Yeah. So Lynn, you know the deal. 5 minutes, and then we may have some questions for you. So welcome.
Thank you, Philip. We have lots of people moving to Central Otago. We have lots of older people in Central Otago. We might take them there places, like the Fraser, there are closed toilets that are not being ordered. Old people need toilets. And we might take them to the Menabun Dam. Same difference, the same thing. Couldn't call it in there. It's really hard for old people. There are lots of them that are on bikes, they're e-bikes, they're hurtling around the place. Some of them are useless cyclists, but they need toilets. And if there aren't toilets, it's a real hygiene and it's a mess. Okay, so down the river track, there are people who can use the bush at the side of the track as toilet. Not a good lot. Blowing toilet paper when it's windy. Our playgrounds need evergreens, maybe, or just deciduous trees that are native, I think. We have native corpo trees which always used to grow here in our gullies and all over the place, and they are partially deciduous and they would be fantastic, and until they are there we need shade cloths, we need shade sails. Our kids are getting sunburned polio, our grandchildren are getting sunburned polio. Shade sails in our playgrounds, we need toilets in our zoo. And we need natural burial sites. So in the Menabun Dam area, there's a huge number of hectares there. When the pine trees are down, maybe some of that area could be designated for natural burials. All the main centres have natural burial sites now in New Zealand. We're all going to die. Okay, so we need places. We've got this huge growing population. We've got a huge growing population of oldies, and we need more natural burial sites, I think, and then it can be a nice place to die. We don't want to be all in these little boxes. Why don't we that? Any questions?
Thanks, Lynn. So just make sure I heard you correct. Natural burials, you mean for people?
Yeah, but so I buried my dog, I planted a tree on it. He's not too far under the ground so you can see the wound. That's what I want to make. I mean, we've been doing it at our place now for nearly 40 years. We've buried physical rabbits by the hundreds. We've buried possums by the hundreds. We've buried feral cats in Stoke, in Erith, in you name it, we've buried them. And we've planted on top of them, and we've got a growing, thriving worm. And, you know, I mean, there are microbes in the soil that are there now that would never have been there because we were on just sandy, crappy, nothing. It's really
Thank you. Any other questions for Lynn?
So these toilets that you're talking about, they won't be on council land toilets, are they? Good about that with it.
Council about 10 years ago, vandalism.
So why is the building still there if they're closed?
We need toilets. There's a toilet on the river track I went past this morning, and people were waiting there, so it's not as if they're not getting used. If we've got toilets, people use them. If we haven't got toilets, people use the surrounding area. When you're old, you need to go. You can't hold on.
Enough to be old.
Maybe it's a good margin.
Kids.
Any other questions for Lynn? Thanks, Lynn. Appreciate your comments. We'll have probably some more conversations around this when we consider item 25.3.6 later on this morning. Thank you. Okay, let's move now to the confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held ordinary council meeting on the 29th of January and the extraordinary council meeting on the 14th of February as attached to your agenda. Someone like to move that be confirmed, please. Stu and Sally, any conversation, any discussion points? No clarifications. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Remind you about your declarations of interest that are on page 23 of the agenda, and remind you what your obligations are as an elected member in relation to those declarations. And now we'll move to item number 25.3.2, which is the community board chair update. And welcome, Norm. Sorry, Norm, we've kept you waiting for a while, but that's right. So you've got plenty of time to tell us what's going on. Welcome.
Thank you. Once again, for inviting me along or as to represent our community. It seems that I've been appearing at this table quite frequently lately, which is a good thing. So starting off with, I guess if you look at the top of the list of things that we have been focusing on Wahekundol and Waitangi Day, we're looking at the LTP consultation. There's a lot of interest being generated through the contents of the consultation document that's we're looking at the consultation document when it comes to the rest of the public, and notably from the community's perspective is the proposed transfer of ownership of the Ida Donald book. There's significant interest in, I guess, just how that's going to go financially for the ratepayers and what it's going to mean for its ongoing operational costs through its life. There's been numbers moved around that it's going to cost $250,000 a year to run. People doing their own numbers and using numbers that have sort of been floated around. I can't understand, we don't understand yet why that cost would be, and of course the imposition that has on rates over time. And of course the fact that they've raised funds through the community over the last 10 to 16 years. But as I said in my last update, that they understand the conundrum, but at the end of the day, the dollar is going to speak. We've tried to move away from that, but we're getting to the point here now where the LTP is we've been told that there's a 14% rate rise through the median. We've been told that rural rates are going to go up 24 to 27%. So, you know, like there's a significance is on top of the 30% that we had to sell at last. So it's going to take quite a bit of, I guess, communication between council, staff and the community, and it's not just online communication. I believe that there's a real need for an open meeting around this mental discussion between the committee and staff and the community. We held a workshop in early December in the interest around all this. And again, it's a lot of it's in support of the proposal, but there's a lot of clarification needed. In our last meeting, we had a briefing from the Rotary group, and there's a I don't know whether it's proposal, whether it's actual fact at the moment, but the downgrade of the maintenance of the Millers Flat Bridge, the life expectancy of the Millers Flat Bridge is being assessed, and one of the, I guess, the solutions to extend the life is to reduce the wear and tear on it, and that has come about by increased weights of trucks and ag equipment that's been dragged across the bridge. So they've proposing or have reduced the weight limits on the bridge. The impact of that on the farming community is huge. The impact of that on the Cubic Road is going to be significant. So any factors, I will not give the classifications that they're talking about, it's going to have to come right up through Roxburgh, over the Roxburgh Bridge and then down Millers Flat. And the cost of cartridge and the fertiliser stock, the ag vehicles, tractors and stuff in the system. So I don't know what the long-term solution for that may be, and if it's a replacement of the bridge. But how's that sitting in the question would be is where is that sitting in the priorities? I don't believe it's in the next level on the LTP, which you know, that's going to be given consideration over the, I guess, the review periods through the LTP when that's integrated. The LTP itself in the next 5 years is about $400 million being spent. Well, less than 1% of that is in the Turia Valley. Granted, we've had the benefit of expenditure on our water and wastewater in the last, I suppose, in the last LTP and the previous LTPs, but you know, we're looking down the barrel of hopefully some growth in the region. We've been assured that we have the capacity to accommodate the growth that's been forecast in our spatial plan. But I'm just looking to see where, I guess, the LTP can be adjusted if it's necessary to accommodate more growth. We don't have the ability or visibility of what capacity we've got in our infrastructure. So there's a question around and discussion around that. And of course, the thing on the top of most people's mind in the valley at the moment is the loss of our iconic heritage building. And there's I guess, feeling of, there's grief, and there's also a feeling of, are we going to get what we had when it was replaced? Are we going to get a heritage building? Are we going to get a building and a facility of equal capacity? There is little or no understanding of how that might be funded, aside of the insurance cover. To replace what we had, I don't think the insurance would cover that personally. I mean, there's a big building, accommodate 650 people, used frequently enough to justify having them housed our cinema, obviously. And I'd just like the summary of insurance. Inappropriate level within council and CIDC that this is going to be replaced as it was. Not necessarily the same design, but the fact that it was an iconic building that had, I guess, very proud history because of what it was. And today, I mean, 3 weeks ago tomorrow, the event happened, and we've had little or no communication around what the plan might be, what the plan might look like, how it's going to be funded. A lot of questions can't be answered yet, I appreciate that. But in a community that is grieving so heavily, I would suggest that going from the top of the table better and that community, the community is expecting direct engagement from you guys to give them reassurance that what has been lost is going to be replaced, and how that funding might be design wise and all that sort of thing. Well, that's further down the track. A lot of road that no conjecture is a dangerous thing. It's just time for our industry. Given that we've been, I guess, this is the second event in the last 10 years where we had the flood event. And that took a lot of liquidity resource to, I guess, recover from. And now we've got this major heartbeat repair as a community, basically. So we're keen to, and I don't mind facilitating it, having an open meeting where we can address, there'll be 1,000 questions in the first 10 minutes, but the actual story behind the roadmap is key. How this is going to be re-established. Yeah, so we sit with being available, and I know you've got a lot on the plate at the moment, but the community does really need some direct engagement. Any question?
I think so. I agree with what you're saying, because I've said a funeral like this is a friend speaking today.
Yeah.
And he was asking for support on personal level for the business that I'm with.
Yeah.
To write letters of support, that how much reaction moves going to be. And I think that if council comes out and shows how much they're actually supporting you, he won't give that one, but he has to ask people.
And I think, Norm, you're right about the conjecture side of things, and it's not just the rocket channels and all the stuff happening in councils all around the place at the moment. It seems to be conjecture about things. But Peter's probably got some comments he can make that will pick up what you've just raised.
Yes, absolutely. And David and his team and Gareth will be looking at this in a lot more detail and working closely with the community board and the community and the council. I guess right now we're still in the process of making the site safe.
Yeah.
And so that works ongoing. So to be honest, there is not a plan at this point in time to go forward. But I think councillors and the mayor and commentary and the community board have been quite clear. They expect that we will rebuild on that site. And that's the whole purpose, to pull it down so that we have a clean site to rebuild. As to what that looks like, well, that will need to be worked through. We also obviously need to understand the insurance, and that's still being investigated, and that's for the insurance to determine the outcome of that. So we're waiting on that, because it is insured for about $6.5 million.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's a key chunk of the funding of the cleanup and then the design, subsequent build. If there's one good thing, is we are going into a LTP within 2 years of this year, which means that if there's not sufficient funding within that envelope, then we can look at other mechanisms. But in saying that, just having an understanding of where we've landed with the Omacau Hall and the new build there, that's coming in a really good price. And so it's quite pleasing to see that you can actually get a chunk of change money for what we'd forecast. So there's whether there's sufficient funds, but there looks to be, if we get the full payout, a reasonable amount of money to put this project back. As it looks like, what it'll look like, we'll all work closely with the community board and the community to determine that.
I guess that there's a need, Peter, for a statement to be coming from you to the community.
Yeah.
And that's not by media, not by someone else's story, but from the top of the table. It's just the reassurance.
Yeah.
I mean, I can communicate, but I've got no.
Short of writing it down on tablets and presenting it to Moses, I'm pretty sure this council has been very clear in the mayor and her conversations that we will be rebuilding it. How it looks will be up to the community to determine. You know, 650, not even the Cromwell Memorial Hall will fit 650. I mean, that, so it's what is the right size scale for that community?
The expectation is.
The expectation on likes to like.
Yeah. Well, more so that it's a cultural and heritage building. You know, we're looking at building something on site. Is that going to be an iconic building for our future generation?
I think the key thing is that until a few other things are known and have some certainty, it's still early days. But I think the point is that it's probably some way of trying to communicate directly with the affected community about saying, hey, we are working towards putting back what you had in some way, shape or form.
Yeah.
Detail to follow. Yeah, that's
Design detail.
Yeah. Subject to a whole lot of stuff. Who knows? And the community might, could be some other idea that comes out on the way. The community might decide to do something different in some way, shape or form. Who knows? But it's probably fair to say it won't be an overnight process. It'll take a bit of time.
I think, well, we recognise the loss that the community's felt, and it was an iconic building design wise in the 30s.
Yeah.
And I would hope we have an iconic building design wise for the 21st century.
Yeah.
Look, normally the other thing is the trustees from the Mankariki Hub. I'm sure they'd be really happy to talk to you guys and how they've worked in with council, because there's been a real collaboration to get something fit for purpose.
Yeah.
Because obviously we've lost Alcohol, the same thing, not from fire obviously, but the collaboration through council and the trustees has been exceptional, from what I'm hearing. So I don't see why that good work cannot be, and the learnings from that cannot be replicated for you guys out there. Yeah. I don't know what the final plan is.
Just a quick one. The property's been incorrect, so if you close the road there, just gone through this issue to just to provide more certainty on the insurance, it's covered for sort of replacement value. So the money that we get now, council is going to receive the side of the investigation. Yeah.
So replacement value, David, does that mean the sum insured is 6.5, but the replacement value up to that, or is it just using?
No, so.
Yeah, actually, so it's replacement to actually sets.
Yeah.
If we were not to rebuild on the site, the payout is more like 3.2, yeah, like I said before, 3.2 million. So, yeah, there definitely is that 6 million, for replacement.
Yeah. And we've got the same issue, the committee that ran the movies theatre and has owned all the technology and site. We're going through that same process.
Yeah, with your content.
Contents, to replace what was in there system.
Out of interest, was that insured
Yeah. To a degree,
through that trust?
yeah. No, like it's, last year we spent the $80,000 on revenue cells. And yes, I was seeing photos of our projector in a pile of molten metal sitting on the floor of the projector room. $170,000 to replace that projector in the stone.
So it sounds like there's some shared challenges going forward, and I'm sure.
Yeah, we have, and it's,
I mentioned it's quite clear though for the council team is to make sure that the community is involved and communicated with, and as they don't rely on extra channels, outside channels to do it. We should be doing it directly, and that point's well made. And I'm sure Peter and David and I'll talk to Tony when she's back on deck and make sure that we work towards trying to keep the rest of the Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and at the same time, I think people have to appreciate saying actually there's still a lot of unknowns just yet. So in some ways, there's not much to tell you.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Probably some sort of overall position of where we are will be worthwhile.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Norm? Thanks, Norm. Go and break down there. We'll see you next time. Probably not next month. Okay, let's now move on to the Three Waters and Waste part of our agenda, and I'll hand over to Cheryl to facilitate the next stage. Thank you.
Yes, Chair, 25.3.3, local water done well, and progress Southland joint group of councillors. Conference 28, and Peter is going to take us through this background.
Yeah, sure, everyone. And look, so online, if you have any technical questions, so we've got a few people joining us online. Andrew Frahan, he's the project director, but has been employed by the 4 participating councillors, who has produced a whole lot of this material. So we have Wynne Williams, Nicola and Michelle, who helped craft agreement, are online as well. So if you have legal questions or technical questions, then I will be deferring to those. But just in a very quick summary, so this is essentially the agreement which will enable the 4 councils to work together to develop one of the options being the joint regional CCO option. As you know, this the Water Services Development Plan has to be presented by the 3rd of September. It has to have we have to consider 3 options. So this is one of them, the joint regional approach. The other one will be a single council CCO, and the 3rd option is established growth. So we will be having to develop those 3 options, or 2 options alongside of this one. But this agreement is principally around us working together collaboratively with those other 3 councils to develop. Now, on that, it could be an extra council may join. Timaru are interested in joining the group. Mackenzie and Waimate have also been approached, but Dorsch closing pretty fast on this option in terms of others joining in, because there's a ton of work that needs to be done by the deadline. And we also obviously have to consult with our community. So my understanding is Timaru now has this agreement. This agreement that you've seen is identical to what all the other councils have seen. All 3 councils have passed it thus far. We're the 4th council to take a look this month. There are some quite tight timelines that we will need to be covered off between now and September. And obviously the other one is around the consultation. We will be consulting concurrently with all the councils at the same time. It's likely to be in that late April, May period. The decision for councils, there's a number of decision points along this way. The first one will be come to you in late March, early April about the 3 options and what is the preferred option of council to then go out and consult on. This agreement, as I say, is about developing that option around the joint regional CCO piece. So the financial cost for us to work this all up to get us to the submission stage in September is about $540,000. That's been shared 25% by each council, and the funding, our portion of that, is planned to be funded through the Better Off funding that we receive from the government and the transition funding. So we still have money that we have to tag to water, and that's where we have sufficient funds still remaining there to cover this cost and other anticipated costs as we move along on this work. And as I say, there are council operating. So we have the decision that council will have to make in late March, early April around what you want to consult on, what's your preferred option. And then there'll be deliberations and hearings. And then there'll also be, once the Water Services Development Plan is good to go, councils will need to approve their release. So there's a series of off-ramps along the way where councils can make decisions. So this is not committing you to any particular course of action. This is just saying if we're going to work collaboratively with some council, we needed an agreement to bind us so that we can get this work done on this field. Happy to take questions, and as I say, there's others online to answer the technical stuff. And Julie's here as well.
Yep, I have a couple. In the report, there is, and this is at page 30, the external review of council asset management plans. Who's going to be doing that review and when is it going to be undertaken?
Andrew's online, but so Julie can answer that.
There's consultants being engaged. They're just a review. And so an example of that is around what we assume in wastewater standards will be in the future and how we would play that through our 10-year program, as opposed to how another council might have approached this program. So that there's consistency in the way we approaching these issues, because that can distort the forward capital works programs quite significantly and take different approaches.
And just in relation to those wastewater standards, Julie, you probably answer that. You had the impact, the potential impact that they could be, as you know, that they could mean impact future investment wise, that could be reduced. Has that happened, or is that unknown still at this stage?
That came out yesterday about 4 o'clock. So we are looking at them, but our gut feel is for our council, they are more lenient in what we had, what they might have been, and it pretty much aligns with what I had provided in council's opinion. Possibly even a little bit better, longer term, longer than 10 years. The 10 to 30 might be less than what we might have thought it might be.
Sorry, just going through the questions. I think this is within the computers. This is in the actual agreement itself. And this is under term, item 6.3C. Is that deliberately vague?
You mean like local water done well? I will hand off to our colleagues at Wynne Williams. So the questions pertaining to 6.3.
Yes.
6.3C.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is the essentially if one of the councils is persistently underperforming or breaching their obligations, the other councils can request that the underperforming council leave the consortium, essentially. So this provision actually comes from the DIA's template. So it's sort of common across all the agreements. It is vague and it is a bit woolly. It stops short of giving you something which can compel a council to leave. You can't, sort of boot someone out of the consortium, notwithstanding that they might be dragging the chain or not holding up their end of some of the obligations. So it is loose, but I guess it's done in the spirit of the collaborative process that this agreement sort of sits within.
So no, you're quite right. It stops short of being something you can sort of stand behind and take action, but it sort of just sets up a framework for having a discussion if things aren't going well.
Okay, and the only other thing which you touched on, Peter, in relation to the concurrent, I think that needs to be put into the agreement. And this is in Schedule 3 in the design phase. I think we actually need to specify that the consultation will be done concurrently. That needs to be really clear. But you said that it is, which is great, but I think that needs to be.
Oh, sure, Nick, is that covered in the agreement, or Andrew, do you want to touch on that?
Well, from in terms of concurrently, I'm just looking at Schedule 3, designs phase, planning. I'm sure we can put a term in there just to say that consultation will occur concurrently across the member councils. It's sort of implied that each council is signing up to this, and yeah, but I'm sure we can make that's a relatively minor edit. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
I just had a question on other councils signing on. So if Road, for example, signs on, and so in this agreement, we've just got the 4 councils. Do the extra councils just get added to this agreement?
Yeah, so I mean, because the mayors and that have been working on this over the last couple of months, and the project team, it's pretty much, if you come into this agreement, these are the terms and conditions you come in on.
Right. Okay.
And so it's very clear, and then there'll be an apportionment of costs in that sense.
Okay.
Peter, just to reiterate, we've got to make a decision on what our preferred option is for the LTP by the end of.
So not the LTP. So we have to make a decision for the water consultation, the local water government consultation, at the end of March, targeting the end of March, beginning of April council meetings, because we have to go out and consult on this in that May timeframe.
Right, and so it's just the alignment of the other options that we're advised.
We are working on those concurrently as we speak. We're standardising the numbers so that when CODC pulls its 3 options out, that there is a consistency to how we interpret the numbers. And that's all been informed by our LTP numbers.
I think we're something on me. We have done some early numbers. I provided them those numbers, and then I was reviewing the numbers, and that's what we shift that they were right.
Yeah, there is a power of work we have to do to get that. It's a pretty ambitious timeline.
The timelines are really getting squeezed, aren't they?
Absolutely. That's why the door closes on councils joining us by early March, because then what we'll have to do, if another council comes in, we will have to fold their numbers, and we've already got their numbers. They've been shared with us. So the consultants behind this are working their way through that, trying to merge them together to see what it looks like, because it will change the permutations. We just don't know what that is. So there is a power of work going on behind the scenes to get us to that point that we can bring to you a range of options, 3, that we can then consult on.
Yes.
And just to get some comfort to those that are listening, that in actual fact, listening into the last meeting of the years and the others that were involved, they're working together really well. They have a common goal, and I came away from that meeting very reassured that they have the best interests of all our districts at heart. So positive moving forward. So this part of the consultation, I'll come up to the document that is actually good for everybody. So with regard to
I've got a question just in relation to the recommendation D, which is about to rely on an alternative requirements of decision making.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well,
I didn't go and look up the
this is under this is in the water legislation. Perhaps.
Oh, okay, so
our colleagues from Wynne Williams might want to jump in there, but we have a range of mechanisms how we can consult. The Act, the Local Wood Done Well Act, provides an avenue. That's the avenue we're choosing, and it's prescriptive. But perhaps my colleagues are online if someone else wishes to talk to that.
It's more about understanding what it looks like and what it means, and
Oh.
is it like an LTP process,
Yes, it is,
a special consultation process the council normally do?
Yes,
So if that's simple, then that's the.
but the other thing is we actually have to consult with the other communities as well, us reaching out to the other communities as well. So we're not just asking Single Otago District Council, our council, we also have to extend our consultation out to all those who are going to do it.
That's all right, fine. Have enough of the next motion.
Again, sorry, the comment shows that the economies of scale by collaborating together the same funds, it will ultimately help the rate pay.
I think it is, I mean, it's about what savings we can make, and then it's, I don't think there's any CCO is perfect, but I do think that if we can find some savings, then it might be just in,
Staffing, basically.
yeah, it could be wages, it could be, expertise. You know, this will cost each individual council, whereas if we can actually work together collaboratively and share those costs, then there's got to be a benefit for our community.
Critically, it takes the politics out of water, which is a key infrastructure piece to every single ratepayer, whatever district of New Zealand you live in. So it means that water is going to be delivered appropriately and on target.
I think the challenge we face is how we communicate this to our ratepayers. So there was a amount of confusion out there, people have, having, I mean, we struggle to understand, it's comprehend complexities. There's more unknowns than there are unknowns. Quite truthful. Yeah, I think that's going to be our biggest challenge, how we communicate this to those people who are usually going to be paying for it.
The magic word is collaboration and not amalgamation.
Yes.
And I think when you're talking about that, you're talking about councils that are actually wanting to be part of this. If you have a council that is forced into the situation, they might just be a form and actually cause problems. These are councils that actually want this to work. And so they're prepared to work, collectively, and they're also prepared to compromise to a certain extent to actually make this work. So.
I think it's just difficult for people to understand that how you can have a relationship with somebody who may be 600 or 700 miles away in a space where your pipes might be joined up, but your management structures and thinking around how you deliver the service is joined up. And that's where people struggle to comprehend.
But it shouldn't be that difficult, because we've already got it within our own council now.
Yeah.
The common water supply is not connected to the Alexandra one.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's no different than that. It's just scale.
It's a scale.
True. I think the other key thing is, and I really respect that the team has to do this work, but the ministers and the DIA have told us that although the status quo is to be put, it is not an option. We were told that directly to our faces, so that is something that we have to do. So respect contingently, but it's not going to be an option. We've been told it's not an option.
But we still have to compare.
We still have to compare.
Comparison, we've still got to go to the community. So.
Yeah, that's right, because it's legislated that one. Status quo.
So there's no further discussion then? Okay, so we've got recommendations A to D. Do I have a move and seconder? Casey,
And second,
no, thanks. So all those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So now we will move on to updates on appointment of three more professional services panel, which is item number 25.3.4, and it's on page 63. Thank you.
I'll take the reports being read. It's just really an update on question that we got to procure these two panels. We've gone through the process. We've got some really good responses, some high quality providers. And we've broken them down into the various panels and we're just finalising everything. And we think we'll be able to get them going in March. So it's been a pretty good process. Yeah, so if you've got any questions or any observations.
Outstanding response from industry, like the panels, which reflects the state of the market out here at the moment. The people are definitely looking for work with councils.
I really like this, and this is putting the professions at the top of the table, doing what they've been paid to do, and they're not doing it in isolation, they're doing it consistently. With a vision to what's, to be achieved, so, yeah.
I think one of the key things for us, and you'll see it come through in the financial reports, is we actually get behind on delivery of some work, particularly the large capital projects cost a lot of money. Mean that we can streamline and move work through a lot faster because we can just now work with these different consultants and lawyers and whatnot. We've got a really good mix. We've got big companies and small companies so that we can tailor packages to certain different companies and get this value for money for district. I've just got one question. We are CODC here. So was there a reason that, you obviously got a good response. How much of that would be to do with that we're actually quite a good council to work with? Some councils, the consultants, as well, and want to be working with us. And that kind of stuff, even just the recent human process of background operations and then with some of the features and some of the rest of the factors is something that they really respected the way they ran the system and I think they're very
Yeah, there's two sides. There's that side, but obviously there's the side that we have to be honest about that the market is like at the moment. People want, if they see that they've got a 3-year runway of work, it's it's a chosen appeal to them. And I'm hoping that also with the projects, if you're doing the physical works, you can get a really good response as well because people are trying to get their block ahead.
been doing a good job nailing the only rates for the next 3 years to us. We like that. So is any other further discussion? Okay, so the recommendation is to receive the report. Do I have a move and a second? Nigel? Martin, those in favour? Against? Alright.
Thanks, Cheryl. We're going to move on now to the planning and regulatory's agenda item, and because it involves the appointment of hearings panel commissioners, which involves myself, Martin, Ian, and Tracy, we will be not contributing to this particular agenda item, and I'm going to hand over to Sally to lead us through this part of the agenda, please.
So we are on item number 25.3.5, page number 74, and we've got Fiona who's going to come and talk to this. No, it's going to be Wayne, or Fiona and Wayne. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'll take this report as read. And so what we want to do is we want to change the hearings panel so the members of that panel are independent commissioners. And we want to do that. They're just going to give us a bit more flexibility in order to potentially change people around depending on the hearing. Essentially, that's it. The register of delegations has a quirky thing where it says you can either have the hearings panel or independent commissioners, not and. So there's no so you can't have a mixture of both. So we're proposing to turn everybody into a independent commissioner. Then you've got lots of options. And I suppose the only other thing is that this would happen anyway later on in the year for the hearings panel to continue doing their work in the interregnum period where there's no council. So, yeah. Happy to take questions.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, because everyone's here.
Oh, no, they can as a quorum, they just can't. That's right.
Yes. Yeah.
Question. Yeah. So independent. What if we have, does that mean independent after an election if we have people not here? Or does it mean independent while they're a councillor?
It's independent.
In terms of, I think the term
Well,
is,
I guess what I'm saying, you've got an election coming up where you could lose the whole lot.
yeah, then we would have to.
So are they independent of council?
Well, actually, what's the recommendation is there? I guess if you appoint people as independent commissioners, in terms of our delegations, then
They're just individual.
yeah, they're just individual, and that would stand until we,
Or anything.
yeah, until we amended the delegations.
So effectively you can be an independent.
Yeah.
And then actually stay on there, even though you're not involved in council, until the council of the day decide to remove you and add someone else.
Yeah, pretty good.
So we have to have 4?
No.
There's no specific number. I mean, in the past, this council's had 3 panel members, and that the panel's still constituted under the delegations, because we'll still need the panel for things like, I guess, menacing dogs or those sorts of things. Where that panel will be convened for that sort of stuff. So this is just to help, I guess, manage right size hearings, and if people are on leave or unavailable, then with Lou being the GM of that directorate of that group, and with the advice of Neil, then we can appoint.
Oh, and like a lot of ways, it is a good result if you want continuity in decision making. I guess. That's all. The question there.
Any other questions? Okay, I move that, we receive the report and accept the level of significance. B, appoint councillors Cooney, Gillespie, McPherson and Patterson as independent commissioners to the hearings panel. And C, notes this arrangement will be reviewed at the inaugural council meeting following the 25 triennial elections. Right, thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
On that, it's an independent.
Thank you. Now I'd like to hand over to Councillor Fineman to take us through the community vision experience.
Yeah. 20, we've got item number 25.3.6, page 77, and we've got the open spaces and recreation strategy, and that will be presented by Gordon. And David.
Community experience.
Sorry.
Lunch.
Thank you. So, this strategy has been, we've had over a couple of years been in development. It's been here a few times in the draft formulas and some updates. We've had 2 surveys with the community, and we have put out following the October meeting for some further feedback. So we've had a pretty good go at getting the feel of the community, we think. So the final draft is here for you to adopt. We have had some feedback from the community that which is covered by other council policies and strategies, water policy, tree policy, and reserve management plans. The changes following the latest round of public engagement, we have recommended the district vision. We've acknowledged volunteering within the community that we use, which I've used a lot in our parks and reserves areas. And we've also noted that recreational activities are wide ranging, and council cannot be funding all of those. So there's certain ones we, I guess we traditionally look at, and where possible would support the new initiative that works throughout the district. Yeah, and I think I'll head out to any questions really.
I might even just add something to that as well. And had it's been a little bit start changing over from Spain, but it's been a piece of work that's been going for probably nearly 3 years now. And so I've got various surveys and pieces of municipal feedback. There've been plenty of opportunities, I guess, to give input into the strategy and to get it to where it is today. So, and it's the first for this council, isn't it? The strategy.
Yeah, and it's actually great to get some feedback that people actually value these spaces.
Yeah.
The only thing is the surveys very limited in the number of people responding.
Yes.
And majority of them from Vincent and over a certain age group. But I mean, it is hard to get engagement in it, and while it's only small numbers, pretty much reads the way you expect the rest of the community to. 24 people is not a lot, and who, for a group of people within a region that are really quite into their open spaces, biking, sports grounds, facilities, and large areas, so it makes it a bit hard to.
Yeah, we can decide.
Yeah.
It is what it is, it was part of that document.
And to be fair, half of them don't live in the district.
Any other questions?
Yep.
Neil, I'm not looking that way.
So just picking up on what Lynn Stewart was talking to us about before, this strategy is probably at a higher level than the specifics of what she was particularly talking about. But nothing that's in the strategy prevents the sort of issues that Lynn raised from being considered and taken forward as, do I say, projects or things, and they're probably more relevant to particular reserves as well, which might fit into their reserve management plans and whatever. And this document just sets the direction, doesn't stop what Lynn was talking about. Effectively, it doesn't stop, so therefore enables it. So,
So just an open space is right, because they're highly represented to do management plans, development plans, and other things they can through out the next several steps.
So dumb question, you just put it that way. Have we outlined it in this plan as being that sort of a hierarchy? So there is a hierarchy here?
Yes, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. I haven't looked at what that means. No, I'm happy.
Just about actual 3.2.1.
Excellent, well done. I've gone past there.
Open space, open space.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just, on top of that one, though, to take on board what Stuart said about the ministry, at some stage, at some level, is there a chance to go back and re-agree to those toilets that have been
So that management plan for flow management dam is out for consultation at the moment. So we get feedback and then of course it needs to be funded somehow. So it's certainly not about it at this stage, and that might be dependent on funding, although the reserve management plan may allow for a toilet, it would be a development plan that will wait to see that happen and allow people to see that funded as something company done.
We've also learned through some other previous work about the importance of technology toilets and reserve management plans, and they're not the discussions happening. It's actually great to have a reserve management plan out now, so we people can submit on that and create some clarity on what they'd like to see there. Yeah.
Correct. I haven't got any questions, but I was just going to say that it's really great to see how valued our open spaces are. And I really like that you did include the provision to coordinate with volunteer groups, because I think we could get quite a lot of bang from our buck if we worked with volunteer groups that are willing to do stuff. And also I thought, just as our district continues to grow, this strategy is going to be really important to make sure that we have that connectivity between our neighbourhoods and parks. So yeah, it's great. Yeah, especially New South Wales. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I will move that we receive the report and accept the level of significance, adopt the Open Spaces and Recreation Strategy 2024, and note that the Open Spaces and Recreation Strategy 2024 will be reviewed in July 2026. And Sarah's going to second that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, so next we're going to move on to item number 25.3.8, page 230, sorry, item number 25.3.7, page 217, and review of the open spaces naming policy, and Maria is going to do that.
Strategy for the everyone. So, Open Spaces naming policy. The Open Spaces naming policy, it came into effect about a year ago. So it is due for a soft review.
a 1 year soft review. We have, I've been keeping with keeps like really, very careful notes the whole way through the year as different applications can come through. So that we can sort of keep tabs on what's working with this policy and what's not. Overall, policy is working really well, but we have picked up on, I guess, some blind spots along the way. So, number one was, we've just, so with methods of engagement, we've just clarified that a little bit more. So you can see, we've just made it a little bit clearer that when we're choosing how we're going to engage, that we're going to use the significance and engagement policy. In terms of unique, we've emphasised again that proposed names need to be unique, and we've made it very specific that they can't be used elsewhere in the district. That's to avoid confusion to do with emergency services, that type of thing. Suggested names. And there was a little bit of confusion about confirming at what stage we're going to seek additional suggestions. So we've just provided clarity that council can seek additional suggestions when we think that that is important. For example, if we only had one suggestion, we might want to look at doing additional suggestions. That's going to be sort of assessed on a case-by-case basis. There's a few things for us to keep in mind. It depends on the type of park. If it's just a linear park or a recreational and ecological linkage, that's quite different to a sports facility type park. So we will consider all those things. And then one of the big things was considerations. There's a section called considerations. So when we're deciding what we're going to name a park after, this is what we think about. So we need to think about the use and the purpose of the space, and whether that enables storytelling and placement again. Those are two things we picked up on is we haven't really honed in on that enough. So if we are going to name the penalty space after an individual, we're making the requirement a little bit stronger now. It's not just about naming a park after an individual, but it also needs to be relevant to that space. So we talked about the Margaret Mackey Playground last time we spoke about this. So you're naming the open space after Margaret Mackey because she's relevant because she's given children's author, she's given to her community in that way. But also it's actually relevant. Margaret Mackey play that type of thing. It wouldn't make sense to name a cemetery after Margaret Mackey, for example, potentially. So we're just thinking about when it's appropriate. Yeah, that's really good. That's a pretty straightforward piece. And I think we're really confident that this is a good decision.
I just noted about this is that this is great policy for councils. It's the first time I think it's 1 year reviews are really helpful from start to monitor the feedback in the community and make small iteration like this. Yeah.
Any questions, councillors? No.
I just, when we review, I'm just reading under background, B adopts open spaces naming policy where a Te Reo name is given for an open space and the space to have a dual name, the Te Reo name is first. I just wondered whether in that type of review as part of this agenda item.
I guess the policy in general is coming back across the table to do a sound check with you, but this is what we put in place a year ago with the state names first, and that's the guidance we had from Okana and Manawinua and the next conversation we had.
It's just that it's set up above that policy is up for review in January this year.
This is the review, any of the stuff.
So in that case, my question is really, I just wondering whether that, as it reads there, is maybe we've been flexible, because I would have thought that when there's a dual name, then it's up to
council community board to decide on how that is presented. Whereas at the moment, it's flexible with the extent that once the name is gifted, and I'm not quite sure what that process involves or means, then automatically it places the Surrey name first before the English name. And I would have thought it might have been a bit more flexible to think that if you've got a choice in both names, English and Surrey, that you would use it, the circumstances of each case should be considered, and which is more appropriate, should be decide whether the English is first or the Terreo is first. The circumstances all the case. It seems to me that's a little bit flexible the way it's written there.
So I think I recall a discussion that council had a year ago. In the policy talks about where the name is kept, and where we ended up with the person to show the sign of respect, and then they kept it, and that's where it came first, and then the English name, but second was essentially that conversation about how to document. So
I recall that as well.
Yeah,
Give an example. Is it really weird that we can?
that's a great idea. His name, which is home on a subject of the sale park. And we haven't seen that in signage yet, but that's what the Vincent community was approved, and yeah.
Did the government not change that though with like Wakatahi Transit New Zealand and the health systems where they used it?
Well, the government, if the
government,
government have mandated for government agencies and departments, but we're not.
I think the thing to hear to me is with what Nigel's pointing out. I'm looking at page 2 to 8 when I'm reading the dual naming part. That is quite definite. There's no scope for changing. And so that means you've got no choice. And I think there might be occasions when you might want that choice, but you've just taken it away. So I don't think it's about whether you should or shouldn't have which one first, but it's about the horse for the course and getting it the right way around for the right reasons. I hate to find ourselves in a situation where we have to give it a name that for whatever reason isn't going to find favour with the majority of the community for whatever reason. So I'm not sure where's the bit about gifting coming from, because I understand the gifting process, but in the bit I'm reading in the policy, I don't see that there.
Might be useful if I explain the process, and we had this conversation when this policy first came out, and we sort of went around in circles a bit until I feel as if people understood where we were coming from. So I'll explain it again. So it's been a little bit of time since then. The process that happens is when we get to name space, one of the first things that we'll do is we're going to go and consult to engage with Okaka. And so we essentially say, is this site of significance to Manawhenua? And they will pretty quickly tell us whether it's a yes or a no or a maybe. If it is yes, then they make a decision about whether they would like to give this name to us. If they do, that's quite a big deal. It's quite an honour. And so to then come back and to say, even though the site is of significance, and even though you've gifted a name, then we're going to turn it away that's it's not in line with the agreement that we've got with Okaka. So that was how we sort of found that this is all about the agreement that we've got with Okaka. And if we go against that, we're going against that agreement. And in practice, quite often what happens is they would tell us that the site is not of significance, and we move on and we talk to our community and find out what other names are, what our community wants. So it's a bit of a
I suppose that's that lack of flexibility that I'm a question.
So would you like, we could happy to change that to, it's that,
I think that what we should do is probably have another review and then we can have a wide discussion when all the councillors are here, because we did sort of go around this one quite a bit last time, and this is where we landed.
It's probably more the order that it comes in when it takes quite a while to get to the story. When you go through and you start on page 2 to 5 where it talks about the policy, and it's sort of in 3 or 4 different places. And I think it's about probably having the clarity as to when you would take the dual naming and when you would have the dual name, the Maori name first, and when you might not. I think it's about just making sure that's quite clear. Because I think too that the important thing about this policy is it's about open spaces, but actually if you're consistent, it's going to go to more than just open spaces. And that's really important, I think, going forward, is that we don't find ourselves with conflicting policies, or dare I say, conflicting decisions, because one's not subject to a policy.
And my apologies, I'll use the word drifting, so you can keep it on the table, we can be clear on it as well.
I think that's the important part, maybe, is to get that really right, so it's well understood, and there can be no confusion, and then we choose to be, quite definite about saying where it's a dual name, the Te Reo name will be first, and then we can see how that came about and why it happens, or not, as the case may be.
Well, it's relatively new because we've only just had a formal agreement with the car in a very short time for this council. And I guess the only risk is the significant sites of significance. We don't have a discussion on that, and it's hard to get that. I think they're doing that in their long-term mapping or spatial plan of significance. So it's new for us to deal with, which you can appreciate, because until we had an agreement with the car, we never had that.
Yeah.
But a lot of our names of our towns and those are into our anyway.
Yeah. And I think there is a risk that you don't have some flexibility, then you can have something that comes from outside the community and feels that it's imposed. It's not arguing against the idea of having both Maori and English name, that's fine, but the primacy of what comes first is important. And I really argue that you need some flexibility. That in appropriate cases you might have the English first, and in other cases you'll have Maori first. Because otherwise you risk taking decision making away from the local community, that they have very strong input to balance against the gifting of a name.
But I also guess the frustration, the government has changed the way the government departments do it. And that would all add frustration to the right part, to the person, or like I'm not saying it's totally wrong.
We have a workshop planned for after the next council meeting, so we can just make some of those changes, then we can have a discussion around that. Because it's not imperative, we need to adopt this now, and then we can get everyone in here and we can have that discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're just, I'm gonna let that on the table. Okay, so now we have item number 25.3.8, page 230. What, no. Oh, move and second to leave it on the table. Okay. Seconder, thanks, Stu. All those in favour? One against, carried. Okay, so now moving on to the update of the play strategy, page 23.
So, should be individual, rounds.
I thought we were going to play games.
The challenge, it doesn't have a challenge, let's get these kids to make it. I was beat them at. Brian's making following system we all wardens much fast. Now there you go, there's the challenge, make it back.
Okay, so, everyone in this room is probably already in this discussion already, so this is just a very quick overview. Hopefully we're engaged with all of our community boards and we introduce hopefully the play strategy. So this is closing circle here today and for this a short update. So a quick overview on the timeline is of Monday next week. We are launching stage 1 of the play strategy out to our community. So it's about understanding what play means to our community. So a couple of steps here. We're using Parks Week as a launch pad, just trying to combine a few things together. Like you've probably seen that there's quite a few different events happening around the district, and a lot of those are community led. So your community has got out there and got those together, which is awesome. Two key things for our community to think about and for everyone at this table. So we've got the play challenge. There's going to be a QR code in every park. It's going to look like this. So the sheet you're holding, it's sort of corresponds to it. We are encouraging communities, families, not just children, to be able to understand these QR codes and to actually understand where our playgrounds are, where our skate parks are, where our bike parks are. Because that's pretty important when we start talking about all of these things, that everyone understands where they are. So that's a list of council owned and managed funds. There will also be an opportunity online on this to be able to interact with our play spaces as well, and comics down there as well. So you can actually see on a map where they all are. Number two is the play survey, spot surveys, the opening end one that we talked about, so we talked about the past, the present and the future, how did you play, how do you play now, and what should play look like in Central Otago, including playgrounds, but also outside playgrounds too. And the one request we had from all of our elected members was that you answer our question, how do you play? So that's the how do you play series. We want to know, how do you play? It might not be about you, it could be about your children or your tamariki. We would love to see a photo of how you play in the little blog through that as well. And the idea of that is to encourage our community to start engaging in this conversation too, because it's going to be going on for a wee while. So yeah, this is the start. We may as well do it well if we're going to do it.
Ideally, how do you play? First option.
Don't worry about the collection.
Ideally, how we should be playing photos.
Calm down, calm down.
True, I'm gonna get wedged in the soul.
Right now, it's probably just for street, I'm not leaving this meeting, Tracy, that's unacceptable behaviour.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. So is there anything we need to move? Just receive the report. Do I need to move or any seconder? Okay, Tracy and Sarah.
Aye.
All those in favour? Okay, it's Gary, thanks, Neil. Okay, now we're going to move on to item number 25.3.9, page 332, and we've got the proposal to extend the Central Otago Museum Trust performance agreement, and we have Paula here and David to present their paper.
Yeah, so the purpose of this report really is a type of holding pattern in the Central Otago Museum Trust, while council finalises its museum investment strategy. The progress to date on this in October, council resolved to continue funding to the individual museums through a consolidated line on our budgets for museums. This will be from July 2025. What we haven't done this year is develop the criteria for assessing how those individual and how the funding will be distributed on the sector. And it'll be really helpful to have the Central Otago Museum Trust advice and support through that process. And also the sector will need to have a chance to have the review because it's well required, so that's all part of that process. The other part of the museum investments are in the property area with the council owned buildings that museums do design in, and that conversation starting off with the RGP and our community facilities. So still to do, we've got to work out the administration process and how we're going to distribute funds to that sector and really to get a full understanding on how we can support that sector. Financially, council does have budget set aside to cover this conflict of society, and that's in the 2024-25 year. And just the timing of this, with the performance agreement running from December through December, that gives the trust a chance for us to work with them to set something that we are going to change it so that everyone's not held down. And I guess on that July 1st when we make our decisions as a council and they can move forward. So it just gives that pipeline. So as far as the performance appraisal and how they're going, we'll ask them delivering for what we need. Obviously the Central Museum 100 spreadsheet launched in the last year, and it really takes a lot of officers that we're trying to achieve across the sector. We've now got a trial network through, we've got exhibition sizes, and those groups are working together. They're in a space now where that's going to be a big drain on that museum volunteer sector to deliver that. So they are now in a moment of regrouping on three prioritising what they want to do. And in that appendix to that report system would be objectives which include things like growing an understanding on the Māori, living with schools, sharing resources and developing relationships. So we still need to do. So my recommendation is that we continue the funding, use that 50,000 to grow to the research trust, and that we get that performance appraisal signed for the.
Any questions?
Could I just clarify what financial year we're talking about?
This current financial year.
So this was 24, 25 years.
Performance agreement carries through to the end of the funding would come in this financial year.
Right. And could I also just confirm that their account, the trust accounts are showing that they've got roughly $75,000 in their bank accounts at the moment?
That's correct. That's because they've all done their $100,000 through the Ministry of Culture. And they had a change of their, they had another week and that coordinated this, and so they're quite part-time coordinator in the moment. They do have funds in there, and but they have also not relied on council funds for that period while they have funding from the ministry.
I'm looking for the next photo of the measuring new town and new in the jobs and quite down new, so I can support
Any other questions, councillors? I just wanted to note that I thought the 100 project collaboration was great, and so far I've been to 3 museums to see it. So yeah, it's been really, I think it was a really great initiative. Okay, so, oh, you've got a question, sorry.
Has there been any discussion? I mean, obviously this has been submitted a couple of times. So, obviously and I see in the report that it's need to be at the completion. Is there any likelihood that we're going to be asked to extend out again? And I see that there's obviously if there was, there's going to have to be a whole new report. But I'm just conscious that, it's a really motivated sector, but at the moment there's significant change happening. So just conscious that they believe they can actually achieve what they need to achieve within that timeframe.
Well, I think part of that comes down to, significant part of that comes down to the council, and we have to make some clarity on how we distribute our funds. So when it comes to July 1, 2025, we have a line item about distributing funds to museums. We need to be clear on how we're going to do this. Their strategy piece has to be done. So I think that will help us determine what we need to determine, and then we can see to can respond by going, how do we structure ourselves to work that way. So I feel that this is rather something.
Okay. And 6 months for them is going to be sufficient time once July hits.
I think the public funding exams, it's really great, really valuable, and it's just from a personal, the way we use this kind of funding, the first support central and can then, all of our things that we do into one place, and that's been a really beneficial thing for the community. And I guess a similar thing happens here as well, just to your point, Tracy. So that's, hugely beneficial internally as well. Yeah.
Any other questions? No. Okay, so I recommend that we receive the report and accept the level of significance. B, agree to extend the term of the performance agreement between Central Otago District Council and the Central Otago Museums Trust through to the 16th of December 2025. C, resolve to allocate $50,000 to Central Otago Museums Trust from the 24-25 budgets to enable the implementation of the performance agreement for a 4th year. And D, note that any funding beyond this period will be considered within the museum investment framework and in line with Council's 25-34 long-term plan budgets. Can I have a mover? Tracy, seconder, Lindley. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. That might be me.
That's done. Thank you, Sally. Your agenda run sheet says lunch, so I've got news for you. And we're not going to go to the regional deals proposal. We're going to leave that for the first item on the agenda up lunch at 1 p.m. So we're now hopefully going to go to item 25.3.11, and we're going to talk about the development of investment strategy for the common endowment land. And welcome, Saskia.
Okay, each one of the councillors. So the fix of this is to review how the slide of this spending on money from our community board. It's quite an important piece of the
the future development of the industrial piece of land in Bedford. And it's something that this time around we really wanted some good investment principles and outcomes that will help the Cromwell Community Board and Council of the future think about how they go through with this development over many years. The other reason it's really, really important is that for this LTP coming, to get a balanced budget, we are reliant on land sales. So we do need to move with this and have really good, I think, council oversight the capability of this piece of work. So really today was really just to let you know this work is underway. There's been a couple of workshops with the Cromwell Community Board. They did receive a paper at their last meeting that outlined sort of the framework for developing this strategy, and that's what we see in front of you today. Where we go to from here is that we're going to develop up the strategy. That is getting worked on at the moment. We're not too sure about the next Cromwell Community Board, but definitely will be with the board with the Renee meeting. And then pending on what the Cromwell Community Board think of it, we will then bring it to council because it does involve land sales and that's a council delegation. We would bring that before you. And in an ideal world, we develop a really good strategy. Potentially this is something that council might think about using for other developments that in the future conversation is obviously focused on this development in a minute. So any questions from councillors?
Well, haven't picked it up. When will the strategy be completed by?
So May,
May next year.
This year.
This year.
Yeah, so we might get there by the March from the community board, but that would be pushing it. So we find a backup plan that will be May. Gareth and I are meeting with the consultants on the 11th of March to see where we're at, and if we're feeling that we're in good space, we would actually pop it to the March. So yeah, definitely the idea is to crack on with this piece of work. So in the really good framework, so then we come to the LTP, there's a really good process ahead for that land development. The other thing running parallel with this, and that's why we might actually take it to the May meeting, is the actual plans for that development of that land. So that we can really to see those site by site. So yeah.
The reason being, if it was much later than that, it could affect the outcome of elections and a new board could have a different perspective of it. And is it enduring enough that it can be looked at in a new board? Or, like I'm not saying like you may well have had tension with the way the district-wide funding's gone with the Cromwell Community Board. That was a feeling that may have come out that way. Will it positively and negatively come out in the document? In the strategy, I guess.
Well, the hope with the final product that we deliver up to the board is that it really is a strategy that can endure.
Enduring.
Yeah.
The land.
Different council for the future, because obviously we won't be just developing this land during the course of this LTP. It'll be the next one as well. So that's definitely our goal.
Yeah, that's my biggest risk is that while we might have a thinking might still now be not as broad as it could be. Across the electoral term.
My reading of this is that it should give those residents in Cromwell who had issues with the districtisation.
District funding.
Sorry, district funding.
You can listen.
Yeah, that it should give them the assurance that the endowment plan is not being, we're not doing a land grant like we were originally accused of.
Well, this board knows that.
Yes. Well, they should give the reassurance. I think that's the whole base of the strategy.
Well, I think the key thing is that Saskia, I think, was right to note that it's not just going to apply to the Cromwell endowment land. Ultimately, it's going to apply to that other endowment land as well, about having a strategy or how you're going to manage it and work through as land as investments or whatever. And then for the council to sign off and say it's appropriate within what delegations there are, but you've got to have a strategy to know where you're going. Well, the question will be, can it be drawn down to be something that's succinct, clear and straightforward and not 30 pages of stuff to read that just confuses
and enduring.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Just a random question.
If the sale of endowment land, the profits from the sale of endowment land are used to buy another asset, does the portion of endowment land that was used to buy the other asset remain endowment proceeds, or does it become unencumbered?
That's a really good question. So if the community board decided as part of the strategy, they were going to purchase another block of land for future development, does that then become sort of endowment status? I would need to get that legal checked.
We're not just in.
I want to say, I didn't say that you use the endowment status. Because you purchased the US, it's under new conditions.
Experience might tell me that, in Cromwell, where we've used endowment funds or sold an endowment property, the cash has gone to an endowment fund.
Yeah.
So endowment is either in the way of cash or asset. So if you take the example of McNulty House, it was purchased by funds from the Cromwell endowment. So the endowment now becomes the asset. So I would expect that if you use your proceeds from selling land and that money goes to the endowment as a cash fund, and then going forward, so I suppose if we were to use endowment land sales, my understanding would be for the Cromwell Memorial Hall, then that investment in the hall is part of the endowment.
However,
Just wondered if it loses its endowment status.
I'm just telling them, sorry, I'm just reflecting on what's happened to date.
However, we didn't have a district-wide funding model then,
But
which is going to fund something.
the advice that the Cromwell Community Board has received in my time in it has always been is that if it's an endowment, it's always endowment, and it's either by cash or asset.
Yep.
And the aid of borough funds.
They had party lines in those days too.
Yes, Stu, I remember them well. You'd be lucky to.
The rest of the community pays. I'd still like to know.
What do you mean? How do you mean the rest of the?
For the maintenance and all that.
Yeah.
If we pay, the rest of the community pays.
I suspect that's the last bit of legal advice we'll be seeking on endowment.
Doesn't
understand the status of something like the Cromwell Memorial Hall, because it will be ultimately funded by the proceeds of endowment land sale, but at the moment it's not.
It's not.
But that's something we can test.
And
It's a really important issue for us to go and get an expert just to.
The last one in endowment land.
I think also you can take the fact that the endowment fund is used to purchase it. Doesn't matter where the money comes from. The ratepayers in some way, shape or form are going to pay the capital cost, even a grant. And then someone else is going to pay to maintain it. So I don't think it matters where the money comes from. You can treat it as being a grant, just like a Central Lakes Trust grant. But I think to get that advice and clarify, it's going to be important going forward. I know what we've done in the past, what we've done in the past. That's the previous opinions. And if it comes out something different, well, we're going to have that conversation.
I've seen an email to the lawyer once at the table.
I have a question, in relation to, this document and it being used, how does it align with the financial strategy? Council's financial strategy?
So it's quite aligned, and that's something that we will cover in the 2027 LGP in particular, in terms of how that the land sales impacts. There will be ongoing financial impacts, but in terms of us achieving the balanced budget issue, this is quite important that we actually have a plan going forward and we repay that on the Cromwell Hall debt. We might be in an interesting position where Cromwell ends up having too much money, which is kind of where we are now. But that will canvas for 2027. Once we've got this plan, one is Gareth's then up with the Cromwell Community Board, and we come back to you, which won't do that far away. We'll probably start that conversation in less than a year's time, as to what that then looks like going forward.
So technically, the endowment land to be reinvested within Cromwell all the time, the endowment asset gets bigger.
You can buy, the aid of borough funds, you can buy it somewhere else, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm not saying there's a problem. Basically, you can do them all and the more become a net contributor to the endowment asset balance sheet.
But actually, the operating model suggests it's not going to be a net contributor at all.
No.
But,
Well, till now it has been, Cromwell has been a contributor.
Why you're thinking, but good luck in getting there.
I'm going to stick around for a bit longer than.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yep, just one more.
Cool.
How is this going to, the learnings from doing this, how is this being used across the entire district for other endowments? And appreciating that Cromwell has a significant trip endowment there, but how does And is this going to be replicated for, the other wards?
Well, definitely, I think this is something we can use this really as a base going forward. And if we do a really good strategy, as I said earlier, it might be that council says, hey, the principals and the outcomes, we really like this. Go talk to the other community boards about parcels of land within their area. We think this is strategy sound, and we should use this as a basis. That will be a decision for this table. I definitely like having a strategy here for a form of decision making, but again, that in the future.
What happens if we at this council don't believe in the strategy of the Cromwell Community Board is putting up?
I'm going to be quite in conversation because only council can buy and sell land. But the endowment is for the betterment of the Cromwell people. So that's going to be, I think, we will bring the board and council together. At council, we bring this up, whether it be the May or June meeting, and council go, oh, we were not too sure about this. I think the next step forward is to get you all in the same room to get together with really how I would approach that. Because essentially, if council doesn't like it, you won't be signing off the sales. From what community board will obviously have a strategy going forward, so we can crack on with it. So
It may not be not signing off the sales, but it may not be happy with the strategy, the way the strategy looks.
and I think we would take the same approach. If you're not happy with the strategy, I think we would workshop it together to work out what the issues were, have the Cromwell Community Board in the room as well, come to a bit of that.
The reality is, if the council doesn't endorse the strategy, then it's a waste of paper.
Yeah, it is.
So it's going to be endorsed by this council, or we're not going to have a strategy.
Yeah.
All the strategies have to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said that strategy, not this one. That strategy.
Yeah.
Just
You're right.
chuck it out there.
Nigel.
Yeah, I'm constant strategy rather than specifics, but we've already talked about the retirement of debt in the Cromwell Memorial Hall as part of it, but I'm just conscious that up until the change in delegations, the town centre regeneration formed part of the strategy for the Cromwell Community Board, and that funding line has been cancelled, or not sure what the right word is, but I'm also conscious of the considerable amount of money that has been spent on the town centre. And it just seems to me that because there are those costs being incurred, that somewhere, once alongside the strategy being decided upon and agreed, the regeneration of the town centre needs to sit very high on the priority list. And I don't see if I saw the word mentioned once.
I think it sits outside the strategy, because this is about endowment land, but I think it's a separate issue. It doesn't sit within this, but.
I only bring it up because of the considerable amount of money that's already been spent and risks being lost if the town centre regeneration is not put back on the agenda. That's the sole reason for cleaning it
You
up.
get that message?
Yes.
Good. He's right.
Outcomes, definitely during the course of the conversation, the community board was like, hey, it would be really good if we could invest this in the Cromwell Town Centre. So definitely the community board have ideas at this stage as to once the strategy's done and we have the development plan as to how the proceeds are going to be used. But that is the next step.
As long as that sits in advance, the higher the risk of you losing it. You've lost the money that you've spent.
And definitely we've got direction from this council to come back as part of the 27 LTP from the Cromwell Town Centre and bring that back together. So that's still a live work stream.
Can I just suggest that the recommendation should be that the report be received subject to clarification of the future use of endowment means? Clarification.
I don't know what that will achieve.
Pardon?
I don't know what that will achieve. But I think that comes up when the strategy comes back to the council. This is not an adopted strategy by the board. This is a work in progress. This is to let the council know it's happening. So I think that will come out of it. I don't think we need to do that at this stage because it goes on its own. Yeah. Right. Recommendations, we received the report. Someone like to move? Cheryl? Seconded. Sarah? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Terry. Thank you.
Thank you.
25.3.12, Royal Hall update, is it, Gareth? Welcome.
Welcome. I was supposed to be at 10 to
Stop making excuses, and carry on.
Amazing.
It's gonna get worse, don't worry. Not gonna get better.
You might be smiling now.
I got your message out of chest, so that's good. So there's a lot going on in this report, so I'm going to give it to you in a bit of a nutshell. The project is tracking really well. We're making some significant milestones. As we speak, the structural steel has been installed into the auditorium site. The roof is basically on the community spaces side. And as it stands, we are on track, on budget, and looking forward to the finished product. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Yep.
Jason?
You permanently leave the finances at amber for a reason.
Yes. So any project manager will tell you it's until the last check is paid, budget and line. So we will always keep that in amber, but we are keeping a really close line on it. So, David's the new sponsor, so the name will change. The top there, when I was talking to David about this, is when we started this project, because remember the unknown factors and their 10%, category, we had a lot of contracted instructions, so sort of between the 120 and 70 mark. We're over there, we're now down to like 3 or 4 or 5, right? So what that does is, that means your contingency spend, which is, when you're getting all those instructions, it's quite big, took almost nothing. So we're navigating really well. We've spent 1.2 million, but we're not anticipating big spends after that. So we're tracking really well on the much we can.
So if I, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding was that when you got to a certain part of the build, the contingency was done because it was a fixed point. So you're saying that we still haven't got to that point?
So so yes, it's 90% fixed price contract in Naylor. You're taking on all that risk. There's a few little quirks that come in. So we're busy working through the earthquake strengthening design at the moment. And we might decide as the design and project team, that we might want to just uplift it a little bit. So we'll spend a little bit of money. When I'm talking a little bit, like even maybe $20,000 in uplifting the spec to create a better environment for a build. But effectively, yeah, we've done spending, we're out of the ground.
So change in price would be a result of actually changing the scope.
Correct. And we're not changing the scope.
And so I guess on the build, your risk level starts high and the further come down, very little damage down to the most zero. And I think just to pick up on the finance piece as well, as the sponsor, the amber piece keeps everybody really nervous about. This is by council proposed, the biggest project the council's ever undertaken. And I think, when you have green in the finances, that people can rest on their laurels a little bit. So where it's sitting amber, I think the CFO would tell you that as well, keep it amber. So
I think Gareth understands it. Very good understanding, haven't you, Gareth? Very good understanding.
And could I just, so we can give some weight when you look at the forecast and completion is still sitting well under the price, so that's reflecting.
We're constantly looking for savings. And what's great about a proactive construction partner is when they do make headways, we get the saving out of it. So I don't know, if let's say that we're 2 months ahead of schedule, that's 2 months of salaries they don't need to pay. So that's we still forecast really well, but each project manager will say on time, on budget, we never overpromise.
It's still nice to see it sitting up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
On who? No, I love it.
Next one. Is it Dana in there?
Yeah, and the overall status, I just noticed it says, awarding the contract to Naylor Lover, which I don't understand.
Could be such a good thing with
It's been there forever, it's been coming in and out to find it, Any other questions about that?
No, just Gareth had a good chat about it this morning and making sure we do hit under budget.
Thank you for your interest.
Now, would you like that correction though? Or just leave it as Naylor Lover?
I just,
No.
it's all good. Righto, the recommendation is the report we received. Someone want to move in that
I'd like
direction?
to move
Stu,
that.
would you like to? Okay, very good, Stu.
Over the text.
Lindley, you thinking that? Good. All in favour? Against, carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I believe we're going to go to item 25.3.13, which is the financial report for the period of 31 December. Welcome, Donna and Rob. Paul, I was getting there. Actually, what? Paul put me off because he's wearing a shirt that was very similar to what I was going to wear today, and I'm glad I didn't. Whatever you would have said.
He probably carries a lot better than you do, though.
I can't pull off the pink shirt, that's why.
Neither can he.
Can we stop for lunch now? I can do. Welcome. Please ignore the previous member.
Paper has been read, so this report is for the 31st of December 2024. So for the first 6 months of the financial year, the council has an unfavourable variance of $1.62 million, which is an overall surplus of $9.36 million. So income has an unfavourable variance of $1.04 million, with user fees, rates, regulatory fees, reserve contributions being higher than budget, but being brought down by lower development contributions, grants and subsidies, interest, dividend income coming through. Expenditure has an unfavourable variance of $586,000, with this being driven by higher staff contract, reduced recycling, grants, interest expense, and funding of our projects. Capital expenditure has a favourable variance, but as we've just discussed in the last the meeting, that it's not always a good thing to have favourable variance in your capital expenditure. And we have spent a total of 33% of our total recognised budget year to date. Our projects are in different stages, from investigation and design through to tenders and under construction. Our internal loans are forecasted to have a closing balance of $4.09 million for the financial year. And we have the one external loan to community providers, that will be repaid in the next quarter. So council currently has a total of $40 million in external debt, but with an annual planned external debt of $88.5 million. You'll see that I've added another column to the graph, and that we have tried to forecast one, our estimated debt, which is about $85 million. As we progress through to doing a forecast 2, we will hopefully be able to update that to give you more of an idea of where we are going to land at the end of the financial year, if we have projects which are forecasted to carry forward to the new financial year. So onto the reserves tables. So at the end of June 2024, the council had an audited closing balance of $12.15 million in surplus, of which there's $24 million of district-wide reserves in deficit. And then in taking into account the annual plan 24-25 and the forecast line adjustments, the council's reserve balance is forecasted to finish this financial year with a balance of $15.7 million in surplus. Please just be aware that the majority of that will be taken and spent on the northern. And there will be more information provided through the long-term plans on our planned reserve balances. And if I may, I'd just like to expand on the reserve table just a little bit, just to explain how it works. So there's all sorts of different categories that we have in here. We've got the general reserves, targeted reserve, and ward targeted reserves. Each of these are broken down to how we actually rate our community for this revenue. as a way of ensuring that we follow the rating index. And that the money that is collected through rates is spent on the activity that it's actually collected for. And then this is also included in all of our statutory reportings from this report we provide to you. We might only provide you last year's until we get an estimate for this financial years, but it's also in your annual plan, your annual report, and your long-term plans as well. But just to give you a wee bit of an example, so the council has a tourism rate. So in the reserves table, it is full tourism rate. It's quite very specific there. And it shows that we have a surplus balance for 2024 of $412,000. And we're estimating to finish this financial year with a surplus of $444,000. To give you another example, the Molyneux Park charge, which is charged partially district-wide, but also Vincent in this current financial year. It sits alone there and it shows a deficit of $45,000 for 30 June 2024, and we estimated to finish this financial year with a deficit of $119,000. So just to give you a little bit more of an insight, so where you see a deficit, so it's an account that's in brackets and in this particular table, it means it's actually borrowing internally from another account that is in surplus. So what that means is if we want to choose to use the funding out of the surplus account, we will actually need to externally borrow the deficit. So taking that into note, we are also, as we transition to this LPP period, decisions that the community and the council will make, which will impact these reserves, especially in regards to the 3 waters area. So depending on those decisions, the deficits in those areas will disappear, which might become a surplus balance. And these to me. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Donna. I think that last bit just to just go through those reserves and how that works is quite helpful. So just to make sure I've got it right, the tourism rate is an example. The fact that it showed that we had a closing surplus balance of $212,000 at the end of the last financial year, that indicates that's where we have said that we can now fund from that surplus, which is effectively unspent rates that we've collected. We propose to fund the grant to V8 supercars. So it's just about understanding how those accounts are, how those reserves are represented, and the money's been collected but unspent. Cool. So any other questions?
But the other point just on that is that money collected can only be spent on that particular activity. You can't use it to offset mowing fees and something.
Sorry, Tracy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, thank you. I agree with, that does make it very clear. If there is borrowing, like you indicated, from one account to the other, internal borrowing, if you two at the end of the table, somebody would here for some random reason you both disappeared into the ether, what would happen to managing that money so that we have some level of confidence that we know that someone else can pick this up and know exactly where that money's gone so that we can have it, the reserves are clear.
Yeah, so in previous history, it has been quite a formal process. So we do have the internal reserve loans that are formalised on page 308. And that is very specific. So that will tell you whether you're borrowed from the Cromwell Reserve or the District Reserve for a certain loan. The ones that you see in the reserves table is a balancing act. So what you see is what you get. So if you're not necessarily borrowing directly from one account to another, you're just using the overall accounts and balance of the reserves to explain.
With that one there, like from the general reserve doing the public toilets, does that not come under a public spaces rather than loan from there, or is that just how it was funded?
That would go. That's pretty sense to me.
I think what Donna said before is that, you know, a reserve account held by whoever district, whatever ward had some cash in it. Someone needed something over there, rather than borrow the money externally, it was borrowed into. And so that account will be getting interest, I believe, is the normal course. So just rather than going to the bank, you borrow from internal funds, my understanding how it works.
And I've seen times when they gradually bring increase it as well.
Any other questions? Nigel? I won't tell you I was going to put it in, that was not going to be right.
Thank you. Yeah. Under the profit and loss report on page 306, it's noted that expenditure for both wastewater and water were unfavourable, and part of the contribution to that was increased overheads, which combining the two of them were over $300,000. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, that sort of relate to the further staff overspend on the first initial profit and loss page, on page 303. Where within the 3 quarters area, and it's something that we're working on, we capitalised more staff time to both capital projects that we've been working on. And there's a little bit of a lag in that capitalisation, and it's just something that we're working through. So that gets transferred down through overhead charge to each of the individual 3 quarters areas to all water.
So that a variable one-off overhead charge.
Yes, that's a bit like, say, the corporate overhead of the council, and that we overspend, like our insurance last year, we tough for, and that ended up increasing every other department's overhead at the bottom line. So it's a similar thing, but it's just 3 more.
I can just add a little bit of that. What we have is some staff going backlog. In order to get the capital recharge of staff, they have to build a time sheet. Some of the staff in my team have been very busy and have backlog time sheets, so they are going to be pressing those next week. I would expect that next week you will see that people stepping through. But what we have is we run a cost centre where all the staff costs for, and then any costs that are not adapted to capital projects is split into all those things. And so because that capital and the development charges to developers, we're doing for them, haven't been feasibility, our current still sort remuneration costs in development in that region.
Any other questions? Recommendation of the report be received. Someone like to move? Nigel, Sarah, all in favour? It's carried. 12:30, lunch back here at 1. Beautiful.
Thank you much, Paul. Thanks, Mayor. All, I said, it's a chat.
No, we won't.
Hey.